This is Ginny Brant with Unleash Your God-Given Healing. I'd like to share with you a video interview I did with my good friend, Annette Reeder, known as the Biblical Nutritionist. In this interview, we discuss not one, not two, but three little-known causes of cancer that we all need to know about. I did not know these many years ago, but these are important for everyone to know if you want to prevent cancer or if, like me, you don't want it coming back. So please listen to the important information in this video, and God bless.
And many of you have already commented how much you loved the interview that I did with Ginny Brant. Yes, it was very well received and lots of good comments from that. Well, today she's back with us again. So I am interviewing Ginny Brant. She has a fabulous book out there. She's co-written with me our new course, Conquering Cancer, fabulous course that's been put together. And she's just a fabulous person to get to know and to just learn from. Welcome to this video as Ginny and I explain the three common causes of cancer. And you know what? You control each one of them. You have the ability to control this, and that puts the power back in your hands. So today, as we share God's recipe for excellent health, today, welcome Ginny to this video.
Thanks, and it's great to be back with you, Annette.
I have so many people saying, Annette, I found you because I love Ginny. So I'm like, oh, that works for me because we are almost like kindred spirits because of our background and just our involvement in so many different organizations, and also just the way we think alike. And so we discovered that when we first met. It's like, oh yeah, we are so much together and so much. Well, today we're going to talk about the three common causes of cancer and how you can prevent it. And you may not even realize it. So Ginny, give us just a little bit of overview of why you're here today. Why is this topic important to you?
I am a cancer survivor who was unaware of many things that caused my cancer. The interesting thing about my case that my doctors were puzzled about is that I had none of the risk factors for the cancer I was diagnosed with, nor any genetics. And so I went on a quest to discover what caused my cancer, because if I can't figure out what caused it, how am I going to prevent it from coming back? My cancer was aggressive, and I had to go through the whole, array of treatments in order to save my life, because formerly my cancer was not treatable, the aggressive nature, and people that got it just simply died. So things have changed, and I went through the cancer journey with flying colors and then restored my body. And now I'm living healthy. It doesn't mean I don't have some risk that cancer will come back. I do. But I'm on a mission to do everything I can to prevent that from happening.
And your mission is helping so many people. So thank you for taking this on and being an educator. And you also have your own YouTube channel, don't you? What's that called?
It's called Ginny Brant. It's just GINNYBRANT. And you are the one that convinced me to start my own YouTube channel.
Oh, I'll talk anyone into doing a YouTube channel. It's like, we have been called with the message, and when God gives us a message, he wants us to share it. And YouTube is just such a perfect platform. All right, let's dive in. So the first one, what would you say is the first common cause of cancer that people may not really understand how serious it is?
Well, I would have to say it's plastics. And it was not in the cancer journey that I picked up on this. It was when I was through with all the treatments and I was just at home, and I woke up one morning, went to my coffee pot, turned it on, and it had died. And so I'm trying to figure out if I have to get a new coffee pot or what's wrong with it. And I examined the inside parts. And what did I find? But the entire inside, where they were boiling the water and brewing the coffee, was all plastic. I had no idea. So that got me thinking. So I decided, well, I need to find steel to brew my coffee in. This is not good. I've been doing this for years and didn't know that there was plastic inside of this. So I go to Bed Bath & Beyond, which is now no longer, and a lot of different places, and hardly anyone had a coffee pot that didn't have plastics to boil water in. I was like, how can this be? This would never happen in Europe. And so I finally found a percolator, which is all steel. And that's what I'm using now. Well, then I was in a tea shop having tea with my husband, and I looked at the tea bag, and I've never seen a tea bag like this, but it was plastic mesh. So I'm dipping it in the teacup,
Yeah.
and I'm going, is that getting plastics into my tea? Well, a chemical engineer wondered the same thing when she was dipping that plastic mesh into her tea, and she used her skills as a researcher to do an experiment. And I want to read you what she found because I thought this was interesting. She found, and her research is in environmental science and technology, it's published now, steeping a single plastic mesh tea bag releases 11.6 billion microplastics into that tea. So again, these things are starting to speak to me, and I'm going, oh my goodness, now plastics are all around us. We manufacture about 300 tons a year, and there's no way we're going to do away with plastics. However, there are certain plastics that are more dangerous than others. And so I started doing a deep dive into that. But it was after, looking at Europe and how they do things in Europe. And I said, they're just different from us. I went into a coffee shop and I said, could I get a coffee cup to go? They looked at me like, what planet had I been born on? We don't give coffee cups to go. And so I realized, they only, give you the China cup. And if you want a cup to go, you need to bring your own steel Yeti or China cup. And I was like, okay. Now I see that, they're just smarter than we are. They don't allow some of these plastics and things in their life the way that we do. So I look at it this way. We need to look at what the Europeans do and learn from them. Do as the Europeans do, because the plastics are coming in everywhere you look.
Yeah, I just want to share a quote from Dr. Lee Connolly, and she wrote in her book, and she says, so many things contain plastics, from water bottles, food storage, the wrap we use on our cheese and our bread. But then she says, but like heavy metals, plastics are also found in less obvious places, our cars, our furniture, and they outgas into the air. Now here's what I wanted to share. But like heavy metals, they have a potential to harm the body in various ways. They deactivate and they damage the peroxisomes, which are little structures inside of the cell that help you detoxify. So when your peroxisomes are damaged, then you get greater amounts of toxins into your body, and they can build up inside your body. And then that makes that your detoxification process is now broken. And if we can't detox, we're like a sitting duck, like waiting for a bomb to burst. Because
in this culture, absolutely. And think about the accumulation of plastic toxins in our body over time. One of the research things I did showed 94% of our tap water in the United States has microplastics in it. And at first I thought, oh, that can't be true. And then an article appears in the Columbia, South Carolina, our capital city newspaper, saying that microplastics were found in the Columbia tap water. And then about a year later, it was in Charleston's tap water. So I'm beginning to believe that 94% might be true. So we're getting it from what we eat, as Dr. Keneally just said. We're getting it from drinking from water bottles and in the tap water we are drinking, which is all the more reason to filter your water. And it's just coming in from so many places that it's ridiculous. Now, one of the things I discovered is that these plastics do not degrade. When we litter, they don't degrade. I mean, they do degrade. They don't biodegrade. And so they don't completely break down. And as the pieces go through our water systems and our creeks and our rivers and our lakes and into the ocean, they carry all these toxic debris with them. And then the fish in the bottom of the ocean mistake it for food and eat it. And like the Australians say, like a boomerang, it comes back to us. So
Yes.
we're sitting there eating crab and shrimp and scallops and all these things that we love. And, we might be getting some plastics that way as well. So it's just amazing when you start looking that plastics are just dominating our lives. And what concerns me is not the plastics that, I'm not ingesting. It's what I ingest, what I breathe, and what I drink. And so I kind of narrow it to that. And then one day I discovered, oh, there's 7 different types of plastics that they're categorized by. And I did one video just on the 7 different types of plastics. And what I learned is 3 are more damaging than others. And it's number 3. If you look on the bottom, there's a triangle on the bottom of every piece of plastic manufactured in this country, and it'll have a number in it. And that will be one of those 7 codes. And so 3 contains phthalates, and they are called the poison plastic. So when something is a phthalate, you really need to stay away from that. And then 6 is styrene, which was where we get styrofoam from. Think of all the church dinners with the styrofoam plates and cups. And then if you drink hot liquids, it makes it leach even more. And then you've got the number 7, and the number 7, usually, not always, is a polycarbonate that can contain BPA. So you've got to look for the ones that say BPA free and hope that there's not some other chemical in it that does the same thing. But the point is, we've got to be cautious and start to read labels on the bottom of plastics now because of all this. And I'm sure they don't allow this. Europe does not allow this, but we do. So.
But yet it's not hard to actually avoid plastics. At first, when I did this whole transformation back in 2003, it just seemed overwhelming. But when I just decided, you know what? Okay, this month, I'm going to work on this topic. So like for the month that I decided, you know what? All plastics are going to be removed. And so it wasn't that hard. But I didn't want to overwhelm myself saying, oh, I've got 101 things to do to get healthy. I just took one topic at a time. And so that one month I just, and things will show up later. And it's like, oh, I didn't realize I had that in plastic, or I didn't realize I was using that plastic. And we just start doing different storage ideas for our food, different eating utensils, different traveling utensils, and, different water bottles while we travel. And then we also take our water filter while we travel, which has the carbon filter, which traps a lot of them. I think some of the microplastics can still get through, and then avoiding new furniture, avoiding some of the paints, and just different things like that. So any other suggestions for people to get rid of their plastics?
Well, I think if you do what you and I do now, and that is I carry my steel Yeti with me. We're getting ready to get on an airplane in a week to go to Australia, and we'll be gone 5 weeks, and we'll be hiking and backpacking and doing all this stuff all over the place. And I'm going to be on that plane for 24 hours. So I know that my need for hydration in that case is going to be more important than whether that water comes from that airline's big gallon jug that has some plastic in it. But I will take on the plane with me my steel Yeti filled with water. And every time I change planes, I will fill it up again. And then I'll have to take from their water as well. But I think this idea of taking a steel Yeti with you to a church dinner, it goes in the car with me. I don't go anywhere without it, and a backup supply in the back so that I have clean water and so that I have it in something that's not going to leach plastics. And just like you, we're storing our food now in glass containers with the silicone tops. And, plastics are now out of my home, but they were loaded. My home was loaded with them. Yeah. So again, I was the average person who did not know until I got the cancer diagnosis. I think it's another thing to point out is, of course, this brewing tea and coffee, there's a better way to brew it, and most restaurants do it the right way. So that's good. But you got to look out for toys, and baby bottles and sippy cups can be made from the wrong kinds of plastics. And it's got to the point where the American Academy of Pediatrics has made a statement encouraging families to limit the use of plastics because they're seeing the impact on children.
Yeah, and it's showing up in their IQ. So because plastics lodge in toxins or in fat, and our brain has fat. And then the other thing, as you know very well, is they can be plastics when they get into the body can be a xenoestrogen, which means it's taking the place of a natural estrogen, which is where we start having a lot of hormonal issues, which can then lead to an estrogen type cancer. So, all right, well,
and that's why number 3, the phthalates, is one to avoid. So when you see that number 3, you know you're going to get phthalates in your system. So yeah. Endocrine disrupting chemicals, not good for someone for anyone, but especially for someone like me who had that kind of cancer.
And yes, so it's just a lifestyle choice. And so now we just say, you know what, I'm not going to choose that anymore. I'm going to choose, either my stainless steel or my glass interior, and I'm just going to take this with me. So like you, I take this on every flight. And sometimes I will have to fill up in the airport water, but I'm not drinking out of the plastic cups that they hand us. And so it's always my better choice.
There's always a better choice to make. And that's all we can do.
It is. It is. All right. Number 2 is a poor diet. Now, this is where my specialty is because in the Treasures of Healthy Living Bible Study, we totally camp out on this because between Genesis and Revelation, there are hundreds of verses that teach us what foods are actually good for us and what foods are not. And scripture is very clear. So I just call it the Bible diet. It's so clear how we are to eat. So we follow 3 principles, and then I'll let you kind of feed on these 3 principles. So principle number 1 is eat the foods that God called good for us. He's very clear in his word. These are the foods that I designed for you to eat. And so eating those foods, which we just call real food, every diet plan out there, and there's numerous ones, but the ones that work are going to pull you back to eating just real food, no label, just real food. So you got your fruits, your vegetables, if you eat meat, then I want to know the farmer. If I'm going to eat dairy, I want to know the farmer, or I want to know that it's organic. There's a lot of processes. I want to get back to the garden that God created for us. And so I can't get back to there, but I can get as close to the food that he's created for us. Principle number 2 is eat the food as close to the way God designed it. And so my husband loves his mashed potatoes and gravy, but yet I make the mashed potatoes from real potatoes that are organic, or I grow them myself. And the gravy I make myself also, just with my own broth and, maybe some organic cornstarch. So it's as close to the way God designed it, but we don't feast on potato chips all day long. So because they can't always control that. And then number 3 is don't let any food become an addiction. And this is where cancer really can play havoc when we have addictions that are heavy sugar consumption, an overuse of salt. I'm not against salt because salt has a purpose.
Right.
For other products that are fake foods, I call them lab experiments, and they create what's known as the billion-dollar bliss effect. In other words, scientists make billions of dollars to create that bliss effect in these fake foods. So you say, yeah, but a blueberry doesn't taste as good as that fake blueberry stuff. Right. That's the billion-dollar bliss effect. And so it's so easy to get caught up into it, but yet it has consequences in the years to come. So what's your take on all of that?
Well, the first thing you said, to eat it in the way that God made it. I mean, when you look at the fact that the American diet, the average person eats 2 to 3 fruits and vegetables a day, and they think French fries is a healthy vegetable.
Yeah.
And when you look at what God made, and he talks about it in Genesis 1:29, these are the foods I have made for you to eat. Well, when God makes food for you to eat, in his wisdom, he's telling us this is the best thing for you to eat. I think what's interesting that I've learned again in the cancer journey is that all of these fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and beans and legumes and herbs and spices all contain phytochemicals and antioxidants and fiber and vitamins and minerals. And these are the things that help us prevent disease and build a healthy gut. Instead, most Americans' guts are compromised. And so the key to staying healthy, knowing that, 70 to 80% of your immune cells are in your gut, is eating for a healthy gut. And we're not doing that. We're eating processed foods. They're not in the way God made them. They strip everything out of it that we needed and leave us with, something less. And so I learned in the cancer journey that our bodies were never created to eat processed food. So this is just another way of saying what your 3 principles are saying. And so I now look at food as medicine, and I want to nourish that gut. And in the cancer journey, I particularly, the patients that I work with as a cancer coach, I'm trying to help them see that as the chemo, if they're having chemo, is destroying their gut, or even if they're just taking non-chemo pills for the cancer, it's destroying their gut or doing damage to their gut. They've got to keep regenerating and rebuilding that gut with what they're eating from God's foods in the way that He made them. That fiber is key to everything. And a lot of people think, oh, I'll just do a green drink where I do a powder. That'll up your antioxidant and phytopower. It doesn't give you the fiber. And so it's in the package that God made it. So I agree with you totally on the principles.
So true. So true. All right. So it takes us to number 3, and that is stress. And just to kind of put these 3 together, all 3 of these are talked about in my Treasures of Healthy Living Bible study, which also there's a second book called the Nutrition Manual. So you can get all of that content there. And then Jenny just mentioned that she's a cancer coach. And so she has put together a Conquering Cancer course on our Biblical Nutrition Academy website. And you can go there and check that out. And then I also have a part of that as well. And I highly recommend it because everyone who purchases that course is just a one-time purchase, but you get Jenny as a cancer coach. And so it's good to have these monthly live calls with her to say, you know what, I just need someone on my side. And we'll talk about that in other videos to come. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel as we talk even more about this, how to have a good cancer coach and how to make good decisions. So we're going to talk about that. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel. All right, so back to stress. Stress is a killer. We were created to have stress in our life. There's many scriptures about the stresses that may come. Yet God has also taught us how to handle stress. And when we have intermittent stress, it actually helps our body to thrive. But when we have prolonged and chronic stress, that is a cell disruption and it's a cell interference. And so, Jenny, tell me your thoughts about that with your cancer journey as well.
Well, there were some things that I totally missed in the cancer journey until I dug deep. And when I went to one cancer convention and about 25 doctors in a 3 to 4 day period got up and said that 50% or more of what causes cancer is due to stress and emotions. And I was like, no, that can't be. I'm a counselor. And then I started looking at the research, the ACEs study, about adverse childhood events on children, and all the research on how positive emotions enhance the immune system and these chronic negative emotions suppress the immune system. And I looked back at my life, and I had a real health nut person who knew a lot look at me and say, Ginny, you don't think that the fact that the past 15 years you have had a full-time job while taking care of all 4 parents as they died, a father with Alzheimer's, which was the most difficult journey of my life, and of course my mom with cancer, and then both of my in-laws at the same time. You don't think that had anything to do with your cancer? And I honestly didn't. And then the more I learned, I realized grief. I grieved for 15 years. Alzheimer's is a grief that doesn't stop. For those people that are in that journey who are caretakers and love that person. And I don't think that had anything to do with my cancer. It most certainly did have something to do with my cancer, but it took me a while to see it. And I realized, I was reading Philippians, and Paul, in the, journey of his life, he's in prison. He's got all these things coming against him. And he says in Philippians 4:6-8, I'm paraphrasing, and he says, basically, pray about everything. And then he says, give thanks in everything. And there's so much research on gratitude. It's just out the wazoo on all the benefits of to your body as far as the healing process of gratitude. And so he says, pray, give thanks, and basically don't concentrate on all the things and all the negative things. And you're in the cancer journey. Let me tell you, there's a lot of negatives, a lot of negative side effects, and you can dwell on that all day long and lose sleep all night over it. If you've made a decision to do something that has negative side effects, look at all the positive and don't concentrate on that. And so I think Paul's advice is good when we're dealing with the stresses of life. We can pray about any situation we're in. We can give thanks knowing God's going to use it for our good and for the kingdom. And we cannot concentrate on all the negative things that are going on around us. We must concentrate on the promises of God that are in the Bible, that He is with us in the trials of our lives, that He's going to work all things for our good. And when we concentrate on that, our body's in a better position to heal and prevent disease. And it's very important for the cancer patient because their attitude is very important in helping them to survive the journey. It's just amazing, all the research on positive and negative emotions. So yes, stress is key, and this gal did not realize it.
And sometimes it takes someone close to us to point it out. Because many times we think, I'm handling this, I'm doing fine. And yet our body, our cells in our body, one of the promises that I love to share is just through all of the research that has happened today, and even in our video series with Dr. Cooey, and he explains the protein membrane, how it opens and closes. The protein membrane allows nutrients in and detoxes out. So any toxins go out, any waste goes out. But yet a protein membrane around every cell, it responds to your prayers and it responds to your beliefs. So he was a professor at Baylor University, and they did this under the microscope. They could tell that when a person prayed, the protein membrane opened up wide. He said when you laughed, it opened up wide.
Yes.
And scripture says laughter is the best medicine.
Yes.
And then there's another doctor in the book on the biology of beliefs. Her research was on AIDS victims, and those who would declare it with every morsel in their body that God loves me, they had a higher T cell count. They had less viral load in their bloodstream. They were able to overcome the effects of the AIDS. And so what this means is every cell responds to the maker's name. It doesn't respond to Allah because Allah is dead. It responds to our Heavenly Father, Yeshua Messiah. It responds to the maker. And this, just understanding how our body responds to prayer, opens the protein membranes, therefore waste can go out, nutrition can come in. It responds to what we say and whether or not we truly believe it. You can't fake beliefs in your body. You just have to claim God's promises. And it says, for as many as are the promises of God in Him, they are yes. God cannot lie. If He's given you a promise in His word, it is a promise and He will never go back on that. So with understanding this, we can start thwarting the effects of stress by letting God's word be what we speak out loud, prayer time being consistent, as He says, and just saying, Lord, is there a stress in my life that maybe I haven't recognized? I mean, your friend had to point that out to you. And many times we have to have people point out to us, like, I think you're under a little bit of stress. Now, my husband will point it out to me, like, I think you're under stress. He usually says it as, have you taken your B complex today? It's like, okay, stress alert, alarms are going off in my house.
And Annette, I have two or three chapters in my book on what I learned about stress and emotions. And I'm embarrassed to say that as a counselor for 32 years, I should have known more of this, but I didn't.
Well, everyone watching this could say, what we've just shared is just simple. It's just simplicity. We should have known this. We all could say, I should have known this. But we have a busy life. We have things we're trying to accomplish. So our attention has not been directed to, is there something I can do about these three things? So the beauty of this video is we're just drawing your attention to it, saying, hey, check these three things out. Check out the plastics in your home. If you do get new furniture and you have that formaldehyde off-gassing, open up every window, get an air purifier in your home, which you should have anyway. And then do everything you can. There's even an ozone monitor, an ozone unit that you can put in the bedroom so you have good ozone in the air so you're breathing in well. So these are things you can do. Now that we've brought your attention to it, you can be intentional about removing things that are harmful. Get rid of foods that are fake. I call them lab experiments. If it's a processed food, it probably is fake. And then get into God's word. And I had one friend say, I've got the Bible, but it just doesn't speak to me. Well, then speak to the Lord. And this ask him, Lord, show me, teach me in your word. And don't stress about it. We're trying to say don't stress. Just let his word speak to you. And if you stay consistent with him, he's going to answer your prayers. All right. In closing, Jenny, what do you have for us? Anything else?
I think it's just important to be your own best advocate. You've really got to stand up for yourself. Nobody's going to tell you to do all things. You've got to research and apply, because you don't go to a doctor's office and they say, you know, you might want to look at plastics. They're just not going to say that. They don't have the time for your lifestyle. A lot of them don't know. Some doctors do know some things, but not many, like Dr. Keneally that you quoted. Yes, she's a medical doctor and she knows. But you've got to look out for yourself, and you've got to wake up, because we're not living in the same world that people lived in 100 years ago. It is extremely toxic. It's extremely plastic. It's extremely stressful. And so we've got to get our act together and put a plan into place to prevent, in the first place, in my case, to prevent it from coming back.
So true. So true. So, all right. Well, thank you, Jenny, for this. This has been a really good time together. Great information. It's so applicable. And that's what's important is these are 3 areas. Everyone can control these 3 areas or start taking control of these 3 areas. And you can take steps and just applaud yourself. Give yourself credit for taking these steps forward. And none of us can relive yesterday. We've all made mistakes in yesterday. That's behind us. We just go forward. It's like, from today forward, I'm just going to make a list and I'm going to go through these 3 things. I'm not going to overwhelm myself because that would be stress. And I'm just going to start just tackling them and then live in the new me. And so I think that's important. So thank you everyone for watching. Jenny and I do have a fabulous course called Conquering Cancer. It's on the Biblical Nutrition Academy website. You can go there and check out all of the courses, but I totally recommend the Conquering Cancer course. And Jenny does a very extensive teaching in that. And then everyone who has that course also gets the monthly coaching call with Jenny. And sometimes you just need someone in your court who understands what you're trying to accomplish. And sometimes it's not family, and sometimes it is.